All right, ladies and gents, you are live now, just so you are. All set, Josh? Okay, folks, good morning and welcome to day one of our senior symposium. I'm really excited. We've got three presenters for you today. Christopher Bain is going to be getting us started, and after that will be Josh Gogo and Evan Price. So please give them your attention. Keep in mind that the way we'll conduct this session, when presenters have 1 minute remaining, I will indicate to them that they have 1 minute remaining. At the 10-minute mark, I will ask you to conclude your presentation at that point, and then after all presenters have finished, I will open it up to a question and answer section. I do encourage everyone in the audience to engage in this conversation. Mr. Bloom and I will conduct that, and as I said, presenters, please do expect and be prepared for questions. And at that point, as you are taking questions, since you're sitting up here, you can come up into this space if you need to. So without further ado then, Christopher Bain. Guys.
Christopher Bain, and today I will be talking to you all about the issues with the LGBTQ youth community and why their lives at school are not at a place where it should be. Now, what do I mean when I say this? Well, for as long as we can remember, people who have different sexual orientations have been involved in our lives. This community ranges in age. Schools in most countries have high numbers of students who are not straight, yet dozens of times every day they're left feeling uncomfortable or unappreciated. LGBTQ students are bullied, teased, insulted, disrespected, if you want to use the word, and not supported by a large number of their classmates. They are not treated with the same respect as their counterparts in the school community, which can lead to depression, anxiety, increased stress, and higher incidences of suicide attempts. Of course, everyone gets bullied. Everyone has their own battles they're facing, but looking at the statistics and surveys, we can see how important it is that special attention is given to the people who need it. Bullying is one of the biggest causes of depression among school-aged children. Almost everyone goes through some kind of bullying during their time as a student. In addition to bullying, school-aged children have the stress caused by academic deadlines and assignments. Students in the LGBTQ community are much more likely, up to 2 times more likely to be bullied, especially in school settings. Surveys have indicated that as much as 85% of the LGBTQ students have experienced some kind of verbal harassment. I am sure you have heard many of your friends and fellow peers making harmless jokes, thinking they're just words, and that they don't matter. Somebody says something odd or peculiar, and their actions is deemed as sus or gay. Almost 99% of the students have heard the word gay used as if it was a negative phrase. I would make a bet that every high schooler in this room alone has heard that word in a negative way at least once. All of these internal signs of homophobia and transphobia can cause many mental health problems in youth. I have been here for 2 years, and I have heard a lot of strain on the use of the N-word. But without social media to tell me what other words I could not use, other types of slurs that I couldn't use, that definitely wouldn't be good, and that would cause a lot of problems. A survey indicates that up to 89% of the sexual majority of adults did not receive special treatment for alcohol abuse and problems. On top of that, the average LGBTQ person is about 190 times more likely to develop alcohol or drug abuse problems. So you see the issue. Now, what's wrong with what we already have in place? Well, it's not like we're living in some type of dystopian school where everyone is secretly miserable with everything about this place, but there's always those little things. For example, our school has a tight and strict no bullying and fighting policy. When a student is caught fighting, the administration proceeds with disciplinary action almost immediately. When a member of the LGBTQ community is bullied, these same measures are put in place. For your average straight male, these regulations and anti-bullying measures work fine. But you know, everybody's different. Everybody reacts to different types of things differently. So why aren't we adjusting to those things? Michelle M. Johns from NCBI states a stigma is similar to a mark of disgrace, which can vary from discrimination, harassment, stereotyping, and bullying towards any social group. Internalized stressors towards specifically the LGBTQ community are presented as things such as homophobia or transphobia, which hides under many masks. Many people may not even know they are being homophobic or are experiencing homophobia. What can we do to help? Well, in Webb, a lot of people would say that we have a lot of money at our disposal, enough money to make improvements and renovations on all kinds of buildings. The student center from last year almost looks like a completely different building. Now it's almost like a hotel lobby. No, sorry, the study center. In some buildings, there is a decent amount of empty spaces around the school. I know of one in the big room. Logically, one could imagine that there's enough room inside most of the buildings to make a gender-neutral bathroom. Whether we notice it or not, some people may not feel comfortable in certain settings. Walking into a place as familiar as the bathroom, feeling like they do not belong or not comfortable is something nobody should have to go through. Sure, it would be easier and less expensive if we just let them use the faculty bathrooms, but everybody is different, and some people may not be as comfortable with it as others think. One very clear way to indicate how a member of the LGBTQ community may identify themselves is pronouns. Some may look a certain way, dress in clothes that would suggest them as one gender, but they identify as something completely different. Walking into most classrooms, not many teachers would immediately think to ask for their students' pronouns, which is understandable. I forget a lot of the time when I'm talking to new people. That's okay. With anxiety and antisocial tendencies, some people may not feel comfortable with being the only person in the room talking about their pronouns. It may make them uncomfortable or maybe nervous. In Canvas, there is a setting on the profile edit section where a person can switch their pronouns so it can be displayed proudly. A cisgender person or an individual whose personal identity correlates with their birth sex may not need to do that, but it can help a member of the LGBTQ community feel much more at home and comfortable, which is mainly the goal of this. Proudly presenting your pronouns could make a non-cisgender person feel much more comfortable with posting theirs. It normalizes it, making their community a much more safe zone for everyone, regardless of their sex or gender. In this community, I believe at the start of each year, or when a new student is brought into a grade, each class should start with a pronoun check to immediately discard any confusion or accidental disrespect. I have spoken with many people who have different pronouns than their given sex. It is more uncommon than you would think. Okay, with these kinds of things, not everybody is going to agree. Some people are probably looking at this and thinking, yeah, that's definitely not right. No, and that's okay. For starters, we gotta remember that I did not make this presentation to say, hey, Webb, you're doing everything wrong. You students are miserable. That's not what I'm saying at all. This is more of a what's going on today kind of discussion, rather than a way to put Webb on blast. We know the things I said are possible. Look at the care team, anonymously helping us with the drug and alcohol problems, or with Lyft, helping those that need academic aid. There's always a little more you can be doing to help make someone's day better. As Big Sean once said, one man can change the world. So thank you all for listening. I appreciate your patience sitting through this boring little talk. Here's my work cited. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. We're just going to minimize our screen now. I'm going to ask you to please stay for the question and answer session. Thank you so much. Yeah, so you can just go ahead and get on the screen.
Do you want him to answer questions first? All right. Good morning. My name is Joshua Goko, and today I'll be talking to you about Murfreesboro Mountain. So you may be asking yourself, what is Murfreesboro Mountain? Well, Murfreesboro Mountain is another word for the #1 landfill in Nashville. And this landfill has 33 counties that all contribute to this one landfill. So the people in Davidson and Rutherford often bring up the argument that we are being taken advantage of, because 33 counties, they could all have their own landfill. However, they all decide to bring all their trash to ours. So we're doing our part as a community when it comes to our trash and plastics. My response would be no. As you can see by the graph, you can clearly see that Murfreesboro, Tennessee is very below the national average when it comes to composted material and recycled material. You can also clearly see that we give way too much to our landfill, whereas we should be composting and recycling more. So the consequences of our actions. Well, one, the smell. In the past 2 to 3 years, there's been a new hotline that you can call if you're on the north side of Murfreesboro. This is due to the smell. If you contact this hotline, they will send out somebody to take a look at the smell. However, nothing's really come about it. And so the smell has just continued to grow. Another consequence is the Stones River. Every time I go fishing in the Stones River, go canoeing or anything, there's always trash. There's always plastic floating, as you can see in these pictures. There's always styrofoam, and styrofoam nor plastic does not take a short time to degrade. And so who does this hurt? This hurts us taxpayers. Why? Because we have to get somebody out there to clean it up. And so because this plastic, animals, fish, etc. are all dying, as you all know about the sea turtles and the plastic straws, the same consequences happening here due to the fish and different animals that are dying because of the pollution that we have caused. So there are going to be three solutions that I will talk to you about today. One is the new polyethylene oxide process. This is it's a new plastic that is in the works. The students at the Cornell University came up with this, and as you can see by the picture, that over 80 days the plastic will completely degrade. And so you may be asking, how is it degrading so quickly compared to normal plastic and normal styrofoam? Well, this new plastic is more sensitive to UV rays. The Global Ghost Gear Initiative took this into account and used what the people at Cornell found out with this new plastic and how sensitive it was. In our ocean right now, we have a state the size of Texas floating around. And it is mainly composed of plastic, styrofoam, and other sorts of trash. And so when they put this new plastic into the ocean, they wanted to see how it would react to the UV rays, because when you're in the ocean, you get direct UV rays. And so they found that after 30 days, 1/4 of the size of a plastic water bottle would be degraded. So my next process is called the MIT process. The students at MIT decided they wanted a solution for the plastic that we already have. And so they decided to take plastic and grind it up into a fine powder. They would then use this powder to put it in concrete. They thought if they were able to put this plastic in the concrete, it wouldn't damage the durability or the flexibility of the concrete. However, when they tested the new concrete, they found it to be more brittle. And so to cope with this, they decided to infuse the plastic, the fine powder, with gamma rays. They used a very specific amount of gamma rays because when they tested this out, they found out that if you use too much gamma rays, it would make it brittle. But if you use too little, it would also make it brittle. So they had to find a sweet spot, and that is what they did. They then put this fine powder into the concrete, and when they tested it out, they found it to be more sturdy and more flexible. They tested it out with a couple buildings and found that under severe weather conditions, the building was able to sway around 5% more. 5% doesn't sound a lot. However, when it comes to severe storms such as in Florida and other tropical places, they found a significant difference. From a final solution, it's called chemical recycling. A company called Agilix, it's also it's known as the Apple, like our telephones, how it is number one. This is also the number one chemical recycling plant. However, they only have 2 plants. Why? Because it costs a lot of money to make one plant. And so the benefits of this are there's 100% recycling. There's no waste. The only waste you're going to have is the chemicals that dissolve it, and they have specific steps as to how to get rid of this waste. So as I said, the cost is a big factor, and as you can see by the graph, it says this is what they expect chemical recycling to be by 2030. Agilix has promised in the next 5 years to build at least 2 to 3 new plants, and so hopefully that'll make this graph even more, help us increase our percentage as compared to Europe and Asia. So I want to talk about our best solution. I stated 3, the new polyethylene oxide, the MIT process, and chemical recycling. Our government wants to come up with a solution for the future. However, I don't think we need to have a solution for the future, but as I said before, we have a state the size of Texas floating around in our ocean. So I think that's very clear that we need a solution for what we already have. And for that reason, I don't think there is one solution that I've stated. I believe that it is a mix between the new polyethylene oxide plastic and the MIT process. And with both of these, with the new polyethylene oxide, this will take care of the plastic that we already have, or the plastic that will come in the future because of the UV rays. And the new MIT process will help with the plastic that we already have, because it will take the plastic and put it into concrete so that we can build new houses. Is my work cited? Thank you.
Hello, I'm Evan Price, and this is my senior presentation on recycling, titled Recycled Beliefs. For starters, let's discuss what recycling is. There's a common misconception that recycling is the one way to address climate change and other detrimental impacts to our environment, when in all reality, there are 3 processes, and recycling is just one of those. Those processes are reduction, reuse, and recycling itself. Reduction is lessening your emissions in recycled goods. You may lessen your emissions by turning off lights when not in use, turning off faucets when not needed to be running, or simply biking to school or work if feasible. You may recycle goods and lessen that impact simply by recycling, which we'll get to in a moment. As for reuse, that is also called upcycling. You may find upcycled goods at flea markets and among Etsy vendors. Example of an upcycled good is turning a faded straw hat into a fetch new handbag, cardboard boxes into drawer dividers, or even plastic bottles into a floating boat. As for the big one, recycling, there are two definitions I'll be reading you today, the simplest of definitions for recycling. The first being returning material to a previous stage in a cyclic process. The second, converting waste into reusable material. I don't know why that window's blocking it, but the benefits of recycling are that recycling furthers economic security by pumping recycled goods into a community instead of forcing the community to extract new raw materials. Additionally, it reduces the risk of pollution by keeping landfills and incinerators free of unnecessarily landfilled items. It conserves natural resources by keeping people from needing to extract raw materials, and to sum it all up, it lowers the need to extract raw materials, which decreases the risk of pollution and furthers a community's economic security. Recycling versus trashing. This is a controversial point and one few people fully understand. When you trash aluminum, you're not getting much benefit there. But when you recycle aluminum, recycling a ton of aluminum saves 14,000 kilowatts of energy and 10 cubic yards of landfill space. Cardboard, a ton recycled. You're saving 390 kilowatts of energy and 3 cubic yards of landfill space. Glass, 42 kilowatts of energy and 2 cubic yards of landfill space. Paper, 4,100 kilowatts of energy and 3.3 cubic yards of landfill space. Plastic, 5,774 kilowatts of energy and 30 cubic yards of landfill space. Recycling at Webb. They're recycling receptacles in 6 important buildings. Those buildings being the BAC, FAC, 2 science buildings, the big room, and the student center. However, there are none in the dining hall, which you may think is crazy given all the plastic containers we've instituted this year due to COVID, housing our salads, side items, and desserts. Additionally, there are none in the dorms. My dorm, Meadows, has 3 large trash receptacles in addition to trash bins in every room. However, there are no recycling receptacles. Other dorms find themselves similarly disproportioned. Of the recycling which is put into the receptacles, it is not collected and taken to a recycling firm, and no firm comes and gets it from the school. So you may ask, what are the challenges of recycling at Webb? Well, again, the food containers pose a challenge in that the leftover food residue requires too much energy to break even in recycling them. The access. The nearest mid-major town is Murfreesboro, 31 minutes away. No recycling firm wants to come out here to get ours and go out of their scheduled route. And we don't want to take the time to go and dump there. There's a lack of awareness. People don't understand the finer points of recycling, or that there are other alternatives to solve the issue, such as reuse and reduction, as I mentioned earlier. There's a lack of incentive. Most people would be rather inclined to simply toss it in the trash bin or even litter when they could recycle it. The importance of recycling is fivefold. The environmental importance is that it reduces the detriment to the earth which mining and extraction poses. Additionally, it creates more green jobs. The economical importance is that recycled material is pumped into the community, stimulating the community's economy in addition to the green jobs created. The communal importance is that the grass is greener, the skies are bluer, the air smells fresher, and the land is more beautiful. The psychological importance is twofold. The first being, you feel better about yourself when you go and recycle, thinking how you're helping the planet, which makes the action habitual and continuates the process of recycling. The second being, when someone else sees you recycling, they feel inclined to recycle as well. And additionally, a chain reaction is born. Lastly, the global importance, which is that recycling reduces pollution both of the air and our waters, in turn reducing the detrimental effects of climate change. So my solutions to the aforementioned challenges for web specifically are, for starters, to add at least a receptacle in each dorm. That way those who want to recycle can. Next, to make the collection of that recycling feasible, so that when we recycle, the recycling will be picked up or taken to a firm and not just sit there and be trashed with the other trash. Next is to introduce a new form of recyclable food containers, biodegradable food containers, which can be composted after the recycling is done, so that there is no plastic waste buildup at landfills or in the ocean. Or an alternative to that is to introduce a machine that many colleges have where it has recyclable food containers that go with it. You get your food, you eat your food, you place the bin back in the machine cleans the bin, and then it saves the energy and time which humans would waste in cleaning the bin, as it can do it extremely efficiently, much more efficiently than we ever could. And lastly, I will be discussing this issue with members of the administration, such as Ms. Solons, Ms. Seals, Mr. Callis, Coach Dorsett, and Mr. Bloom himself. In my discussions with them, I will figure out what would be a feasible solution to take care of this, both in the short run before I'm out of here, and then the long run 10, 15 years down the line. In doing so, I will get their thoughts on the matter and hear their proposed solutions. Here are my image credits and my works cited. Thank you for listening and have a good day.
All right, thank you so much, gentlemen. I think at this point I will bring Chris back up full screen, and we'll open this session up for general questions from the audience.
I don't know why his window was there the whole time. It wasn't on my screen.
You were able to slide that to the right.
Like, I had it in the bottom corner there. And I tried to move it. It was just.
Hey, Chris, you
underneath
can
my text. That's why I
unmute
got
now.
a break where I was like, I can't move it.
No worries.
Hope that didn't dox me too much.
Okay. Is there any questions for any of our presenters at this point? I know I have a few that I'd like to ask at some point, and so I'll open to our audience first.
Good job, guys.
Okay. So I'm just gonna grab my notes here. So.
None of you had questions?
I have a question for Josh and Evan.
Yeah, there you go, Roman, ask away.
So Evan, this one is for you. What do you think web should do in order to quicker the pace of recycling and to become more environmentally friendly?
Well, Roman, I'm glad you asked that. For starters, I'll get up in chapel and alongside a member of the administration, such as Mr. Bloom possibly, if he would be open to it, after meeting with them and hearing their thoughts, collecting their thoughts, going through it and, you know, doing some heavy thinking, I would propose whatever we decide upon to the school. But for starters, you know, just off the cuff, I'd say make it known that we have recycling and make it known that it will be collected. And, you know, maybe even put out a Google form there for the students real passionate about it, whether they like it or they hate it. You know, hear why.
I'm going to ask a follow-up to that, Roman, to you, Evan. So, do you think, so feasibility of collection is kind of a big thing, I think, here at Webb. I mean, maybe in any remote type of place, like a remote school like Webb, or maybe more of some counties that are more rural and things like that. And some of that is just simply kind of lack of resources, a lack of money. I mean, a lot of it comes back to economic speaking, right? There's kind of lack of money. So I guess the question is do you think, like, if we just focus on Webb specifically, is this something that can be student-led, or does recycling, a bigger term for that, does that need to be a piece of some adult's job, so to speak? Like, does the point person need to be an adult that has a student-led group under them, or can students lead this themselves, I guess? What do you think? Like, and not just for maybe this year, but for, you know, the long term.
Right. For this year and going forward, it should be done in tandem with a faculty member running point, so that they know where everyone's head is at and what they're doing, and that they can handle all the logistics and the economic side of things. It can be done. It may take a little work. Again, we're 31 minutes away from Murfreesboro, and where we are in Bell Buckle, within Bedford County, there is no recycling facility. So we would have to go over to Rutherford County and use one of theirs. And I know in previous years, Tiger Wong had led endeavors to recycle, and they would like fill up a school bus with stuff and take it over to the recycling place. However, with COVID, that's not been real feasible, but I certainly think it can be done easily. Just it does need to be something where you have a faculty member running point. As you said, it would be part of their job title.
Yeah, because I think at some, you know, other schools like Webb, you know, other boarding independent schools do have a that's the word, it finally came to me. A sustainability person, you know, it might not be, maybe that's not their only job at the school, but that's a big portion of their job is sustainability, and that, you know, and it goes back to some of the other words you were saying, not just recycling, but reusing, and reducing and things like that, so, okay.
Sir, thank you for the questions. Oh, Trey? Not done.
Miss Little in the library had noticed that when the trash can was closer to people than the recycling bin, people would throw more trash in the recycling bin, or would put their recycling stuff in the trash. However, when she moved them, she found nothing changed. Do you think that maybe we should put recycling bins closer to more traffic areas and move trash cans further away, possibly?
Yes and no. There are obviously certain things which can be recycled, but, you know, like food wrappers, chip bags, soda cans. You know, soda cans, they're metal and aluminum, they can be recycled, but it's not really worth it because of the soda residue and how tight the little corners are within it. And so I think that a way to solve it would be by putting recycling bins in more heavily trafficked areas and having trash cans nearby within proximity, not, you know, putting one at this corner of the world and another over here, but having them nearby. And I think the biggest thing is, again, just that lack of awareness. So whenever we get up in chapel, you know, just address that and, again, make it known that there are recycling receptacles and this is what can be recycled, this is what needs to be trashed.
Cool.
Any other questions, Mr. Fenn?
Yeah, so it's interesting, I think especially with the title of your piece, refresh my memory again, it is Recycling Myths, is that?
Recycled beliefs.
Recycled Beliefs, yeah, and so, I don't know if anybody knows that, John Oliver, does anybody know? So he's a British comedian, he does, Last Week Tonight, and a few weeks ago, I was actually talking to somebody else about this, he had done an entire special looking at plastic, and it's material that I'd heard before, but it looked specifically at the mythology of recycling. Essentially that idea that in the 70s, the bottling industry, Coca-Cola, and other manufacturers and corporations started to promote this idea in order to offload their own responsibility, because they realized that they were paying the cost. For those of you who don't know, Mr. Bloom and I would know this, that you used to, and there are still some places, but you used to have deposit on glass bottles. So you would return them, and even aluminum cans, and you get 5 or 10 cents back, something like that you were paying forward. The industry realized that was a burden for them, that they ultimately had to take care of this material, but then they thought, well, can we shift that responsibility over to the consumer, and to create this idea of, if you recycle, and I thought you did a really nice job of articulating the way in which we get that bump, right, that dopamine hit of, I'm doing the right thing. I know I pay for recyclers to come to my house to pick up every few weeks, but I guess the question I'm asking is, do you think recycling is actually effective, and is the most effective practice for maybe our sustainability program going forward here, or some of those other components that you started with about reducing and reusing, are the ways that you have considered how we could leverage it and bring those in, and maybe, I think, explore those ideas if recycling may not be as effective as we think it is?
Certainly, and I appreciate the compliment there. Recycling is of course, the most commonly known one, and the biggest thing with recycling is it's quick. You just throw it in the bin.
Exactly.
The recycling facility takes care of the rest. With reduction and reuse, you gotta do a little more there. And us being busy bee kids, it's not really within our wheelhouse to want to go and reuse things. Like, reusing's easier than reducing to a degree. Reducing's easy in thought, but to get that into habitual action, it takes a while, and you gotta be a little more cognitively aware of what you're doing in the moment. With recycling, I think that's the best option for Webb's campus, but I certainly think that we should also investigate reuse.
Okay, great. Thanks so much, Evan. Roman, you did such a great job of kicking off our questioning last time. Anyone else for our other?
I have a
two
question for
panelists?
Josh Coco.
All right, perfect.
Yeah, there we go.
Josh, come on down. We're up.
You had mentioned that there's a big big company called Anglix or something like that.
Agilix, yep.
What have they said about the large landmass in the ocean?
Well, so Agilix they're a chemical recycling plant, like I said. To cope, they actually have done a lot to cope with the state the size of Texas, made up of plastic. They have actually started taking out, I'm sure all of you have seen the little bracelets online. I can't remember the company, it's called Ocean something. They make little bracelets out of trash. They have little different mechanisms to go out and go pick up trash without a human on board. But they will take that trash that is from the ocean and just put it straight into their chemical plants. And so they are not only reducing what we have on land, but also on sea. So that's pretty much, I would say yes.
Thank you.
Evan?
What have you enjoyed most about your presentation, from its conception to now its delivery?
Probably researching the different solutions. I didn't really realize how many, how big of a problem this is. Like you said, awareness. We really don't realize how big of a problem this is, because when I drive, when I go out, before this project, I used to litter occasionally, throw a water bottle out here and there. And so, looking back on that, the reason I did that was, one, I was lazy, That's probably the main reason. However, the second reason is I didn't realize that you got to think, if I'm doing it, how many other people are doing it? And so I think what I really didn't realize is the lack of awareness that we have. Like you said, you said awareness would help a lot in chapel. I really do believe if I was in your position and we're talking about awareness, I'd want to kind of guilt trip people a little bit, make them feel bad, because what we've done, and I mean, you can clearly see there's a state the size of Texas. Like, if you think about that, that's insanely big. And so back to awareness, I believe that if we had a better awareness, and if we grew up knowing what a problem this is, I really think that the way we live, the amount of pollution we have, would not be as much. And so I think just realize how big of a problem was probably my biggest, the thing I like most. Not to say I like problems, but I do think that knowing the problem is very effective to a person, because that person can then come up with a solution to said problem. And so yeah, that's probably what I liked about most about my project.
How do we know where, like, so the whole so awareness, coming back to awareness, which all three of you, I have a general question later at the end for all three of them, but, so, that was really interesting about the MIT process of the breaking down of the plastic and reusing it. I mean, I've never seen it before, so that was really cool. So how do you know, as like, whatever, consumer, or, you're buying all these Coke Zero bottles, you're drinking them, and how do I know when I recycle that's going there and not going to the landfill? Like, how do we know?
Like specifically, you're not talking specifically about the MIT process. You're talking about how do we know if it's really going to the landfill, or if it's going to the landfill or getting recycled?
Right.
So I would definitely say there's a sense of trust that we have to have in said recycling businesses. But with coming that trust, I think in the past decade, I think it's harder to trust because I think like I said, there's a lack of awareness, and that lack of awareness, I think, has reduced the effectiveness of said recycling plants. And so I would definitely say that our lack of awareness has contributed to us not having a strong trust in said recycling plants. And I think that with more awareness, that trust will be built back up. So. Yes, sir.
So, Josh, I really appreciate, I think that's such an important point, that about trust, that I think, as I was saying before, there's this sort of naive belief, and we sort of want to believe it because as evidence that it makes our lives easier, right?
Yeah,
I
sure.
can just do this. But I really loved about your project is the way that you found kind of these innovative solutions that were sort of out there and are in these experimental phases. And so I guess, as I had read your piece and was thinking about you presenting it now, I was wondering, and I don't know if you know, and if it's outside the scope of your research, that is totally fine. For those experimental processes, are there municipalities or organizations that have used, so I know you talked about the Global Ghost Gear Initiative,
Yes.
and you had spoken to some of the testing that MIT had done, but that one in particular, the MIT process, are there folks that have picked that up and are implementing that, or is it still in the experimental phases?
Okay, so before I answer that question, Murfreesboro is number 7 top grossing cities. And so they have actually implemented the same MIT process. It's not, I wouldn't say like they're going to start ramping out production with
Right.
new houses built up with it. But in Murfreesboro, they actually have, they've started building houses with the same idea. I wouldn't say that it's directly correlated to MIT
Mm-hmm.
and what they came up with, but they have come up with different solutions to integrate the plastic into the concrete, and not just concrete but bricks. And so, with that being said, Murfreesboro is a top grossing city, and so that's why another reason why the MIT process would work so well for us, because when you put the plastic in, one, you're reducing the plastic that we already have, and second, you're reducing the concrete that you need, and so you're going to reduce the amount of concrete. And what I didn't talk about in my presentation, but concrete is #1 leading in emissions. Concrete gives off the #1 emissions in the whole world. So when you reduce the amount of concrete that you have to use, not only are you reducing the plastic that you have, but also you're reducing the emissions. And so when I was finding these different types of solutions, my biggest thing was, yeah, I can find a solution for plastic. It's called recycling. However, I want a solution that solves multiple problems. And so the MIT process is a prime example of that, because it would reduce emissions along with the amount of plastic we have. But yes, they have implemented different housings into with the MIT process. That's
So my
knock
follow-up,
off.
and then I promise I'm done on this. So, and again, very similar to the question that I asked Evan. So we know about the Great Pacific Garbage Patch that, you know, you
Mhm.
referenced as the size of Texas. I can remember reading about that years ago, and I think it's sort of incredible and awful within it. So we know the extent of the concerns with plastic, but I guess the question, aside from plastic, and again, if it is outside the scope of your research, are there other things that we should be addressing to contend with the landfill issue in Murfreesboro?
So you're asking like
Aside from plastic, you know, and I guess I'm wondering about the amount of plastic waste that is at that landfill, and if are there other things we should be treating, or if it is only the plastic? As I said, that may fall outside your research. If it is, you can say that.
no, I think it is in my research. I'm just a little confused on the question. So you're asking if
What do we do with the stuff that isn't plastic?
oh, okay.
To simplify,
So styrofoam, metal, etc.
yeah.
And what I found was, for the majority, it was plastic. However, for the metal that was shown, a lot of it just got melted down. And so, there isn't, according to my research, and I didn't research metal and I really just did styrofoam and plastic. However, metal, it's so much harder to recycle. But at the same time, when you recycle metal, as you saw in his presentation, it saves so much energy. It saves 14,000 kilowatts of energy. And so I think there definitely is a solution out there for the metal, but I'm not completely sure on what I would do with it.
Okay, great, awesome. Thanks so much. So I think for questions to Chris, we will probably have to come to the computer, just I think in terms of his ability to hear us. Does anyone want to start Chris's questioning? Get it started.
I'll try to get it started. Chris, can you hear me? Do I speak into the computer?
Yeah.
Not very well.
Yeah.
I
Alright,
think I have to come down.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes,
Okay,
much better.
so, towards the end of your presentation, you brought up a really interesting point about a pronoun check at the beginning of the year, beginning of class. How do you foresee? So, look, a lot of what you're talking about is education as well, which all three of you today brought up, education and awareness. I think that was a theme of all three of your presentations. So some of this is not just with the students, it's faculty as well. So how do you, like if there's a class of 15 kids, in a class and we're doing something like that, how does the faculty moderate that conversation?
I think a good way to do it would be icebreakers, like how in the beginning of the beginning of the school year, with most teachers, they go around the room saying, "Hey, my name is blah blah blah. I'm from blah blah blah. I'm in this grade or whatever." The pronouns could be incorporated into that. Hey, my name is Christopher. My pronouns are he, him. Those kinds of things. And yeah, like that.
Thank you.
So Chris, a couple of questions as well from me. So I was wondering, I was thinking about for your topic in particular, just if any, so often we think about progress that has been made, and I was just listening to, I think it was a comic talking about the things that he said in the year 2000 that he wouldn't necessarily say in his routines now, just because the world has changed so much, and in some ways he's embarrassed by some of the things that he had said. So I guess I was wondering, just sometimes there's that sort of bleak portrait. In your research, have you found that, and I think you did a really effective job, I think, of helping us to see the problem, right, and the extent of it, and I think some of the suffering that folks are dealing with. Have you found that progress has been made, or instead you see that things are getting worse for LGBTQ students?
I think every so often we make a couple steps forward, but also every so often we make a couple steps backwards. This doesn't apply to the students, obviously, but the states and countries are slowly starting to a lot of countries and things like that, they're legalizing gay marriage, those types of things. I think we're making a lot of progress, and like I said, with the in Canvas with the editing, you're allowed to put your pronouns into incorporated with your name. It's displayed proudly with your name, Christopher Bain, he, him, those kinds of things. And I think we're making a pretty good amount of progress, but also there's gonna be a whole lot of hate in the world. There's always a lot of hate in the world. There's hate crimes, people saying things behind your back in the street or during class. So I think there's a good balance of it, but there's still a whole lot more we could do in terms of making people feel safe.
Okay, great. And I think connected to that, I was gonna say, are there any particular success stories that you've seen of other schools implementing some of the programs that you've suggested?
Not that I can recall, no.
Okay, fair enough. Other questions? And Mr. Bloom, did you say you had a kind of a group question for them? Just as we start to wind down.
It might be a little bit hard to hear.
Mr. Bloom is going to come up. Yeah.
So all three of you, I think, is you all talked about education, awareness, which those kind of go hand in hand. So you think throughout the school year, right? And whether it's talking about LGBTQ, whether it's talking about recycling, pick a topic. We always seem to have these days, right? It's Earth Day. It's this day. It's so around those times you have people get up and speak about things. But I guess the question is, how do we keep these things ongoing here at a school like Webb? Because a couple of you, I think, said that a lot of people are going in many different directions, and maybe you're thinking about something this week, but then 2 months later, that's been forgotten, right? So how do you keep the education going? I guess is the question for all of you, and you don't even have to answer it, but it's something to think about, because I think all three of you did a great job, and I think all the seniors are probably going to have some of these kind of topics, like what can make Webb better, but I think the bigger question is, how do you sustain that? How do you sustain some of these great ideas and programs, not just for the rest of a year or the rest of next year, but
you know, all going forward in the future.
What do you say, gentlemen? Final thoughts on that, or are we gonna let that resonate?
I think we're letting it resonate.
I mean, I'll take
Evan, you gonna
it.
give us final thought on that?
Sure will.
Yeah, there you
We'll
go.
wrap it up.
I think like in the simplest terms to make sure that, you know, it doesn't die off after a year or after 5 years, you really just gotta keep it alive. You know, keep talking about the issue, you know, include it in the newsletter, and like we have the health tips section, maybe include like a recycling tips section. And just the biggest thing again is, you know, keep it in discussion, keep it in the forefront of our minds, and always, you know, having critical thought about the matter.
Thanks so much, Evan. Gentlemen, fantastic start. I'm really proud of the work that you had done. You handled questions well, you presented well and effectively. They've set a high bar for those of you who will be going on this upcoming Thursday. I look forward to seeing you guys finish out strong. Rest easy, those of you who have finished, take care, and we'll see you all next time. Thanks so much. Josh?
Set, Will Taylor. The bar is set for you, Will Taylor.
I get to
Wait a minute, so I thought, so I was trying to sum it up with.
Yeah, can we see what we got? It hasn't been tabulated.
So I have to run these by,
That's why I'm
like,
here.
I have to run it to run, like it's not just my fault. Oh, it's right now, it's a committee.
So you were waving at me.
No,
Your
so
job.
it's interesting, I think.
Because I kept talking.
One of
Just
these
look at
three,
my notes.
eight, these one question.
Or else,
Same you,
or else,
or
or
Did you
else.
like skip a section at the beginning?
One
You
question.
spent about 2.5 minutes on the problem. When you presented to me last week, I think you spent more on that.
Grammatically, man.
It was like 7 minutes and
Like you
30
just
seconds.
poured alphabet
7:30,
soup on the
exactly.
keyboard.
I thought you would wave at me, because I would have kept talking
It's
about
nothing
it.
major, don't worry about it. It's not something that I factored in.
How did I do?
You were actually good. It was, I think you were 8:30 or maybe even 9.
Okay. Because yesterday I went
Oh,
like
actually, yeah, I said,
You
I
want
had
11:30.
yeah, so that was good. Chris, nicely done, my friend. I know it was challenging to sort of handle it this way. I think you handled yourself really well. I appreciate the work that you did on this. I think it's a really important topic, so I'm so glad that you chose to talk about this. Breathe easy, my friend. Take it easy for a little bit here, and we'll check in. As I said, I've got to run these scores, you know, kind of through our committee, so it's going to take a few days to process on those. Let me know if you have any questions, okay?
Okay, I have a question, but it's not related to the.
Yeah, go for it.
How many people? How many people are in the room?
It's actually pretty, it is much smaller. So Mr. Bloom and I have a pretty small advisory group. There's probably only about 20 of us
Can we
here.
uninvite?
Okay.
Yeah,
Since our
so,
family?
but I'm not sure what the, remember, so we were live broadcasting this too, so
Yes,
there's possibly a
please.
much larger audience of this, so,
You,
yeah.
alright,
but-
you're gonna come.
Well
up
done, Chris.
tomorrow, too.
Take care, okay? All right, I'll see you.
Wait, at 2? I mean, I have to leave at 2:30. Yeah, wait, I can come at 2,
Alright, you go
but I have to leave at 2:30.
Okay. Well, if you guys wanna practice your thing tomorrow up here, we can probably do it at 2 o'clock, 'cause I'm sure
We can't do it in the office.
Well, we can.
you can, is that what you wanna do it?
I'll bring my laptop and click
Okay, office or here?
office.
I've got clubs that I've gotta be at
I'll just,
tomorrow.
I'll put my
You don't have
computer,
to-
you know the little table, we'll do it on the little table in your office, that way I can practice like clicking the slides.
Okay. Alright, 2 o'clock tomorrow. Not 2 AM,
Yeah, that's the
that's
deal.
not gonna happen. Practice.
Mr.
Cool.
Please don't ask me any questions.
Yes, I'm gonna ask you a question,
He
okay?
doesn't, Mr.
If,
Finn
well, if
will.
That's-
Carter, if
We're both going to ask you questions. It's
well,
going
if
to happen.
Carter and Sism ask me questions, then I won't have to.
I'm just gonna start responding with questions if I get too many.
Gonna respond. Yes.
Well, Trey's bringing his own, like, you're bringing your own fan club, right?
Yeah,
You're
probably.
bringing a whole set, so you can just,
That's
I think what you can do
terrifying.
is-
Can I go in a different venue?
that ship has already sailed, dude.
I can't
So I think the
now.
key is this: you set them up like the straw man, right?
Mhm.
So you feed them the questions that you've got these really brilliant answers for, and just like have them ask those.
Exactly.
And that will eat up so much of the time. Mr. Bloom and I will not be able to pepper you with questions.
Exactly, and then if you do try to give a question, I'll just have one of them speak over you.
Right. That's usually, yeah. That's probably the best approach.
Bye, Mr. Finn.
Take care, guys.
Guys, later.
Thanks, John, appreciate it.
Okay, what do you have? Study center next? Look at that. How'd that work out?
Right.
I
Um,
don't know how to use PCs anymore, I'm like, how do I
Hey, that
do
was-
this one?
that was pretty good.
I thought we would have more people. I had done the numbers on your advisory and mine, but
John Andrews? Is he in your advisory?
he is. Is he not here today?
I didn't see him.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't
Oh,
in the
yeah.
room, so, but no, I mean, I didn't know if he was absent, but no, I was thinking the same thing.
Well, I
but
had,
mine-
one of my advisors was not here today, so that's, so.
Yeah,
Drew
it
got
was
that.
still very small. But I think in terms of. I had that conversation with his parents, I've just had.
He's in this class next,
Who?
too.
Drew? Anyway, I thought.
So capable, he usually tries to find the path, I mean, I do this.
Had the laser resistance.
Yeah, and I said, you know, he gets mad at me sometimes, but I'm telling him, it's just, I mean, he's so capable, he's usually trying to find the path of resistance, and I'm like, he's got potential, but I don't understand this from now.
That was. Yeah, I think when he reads something, he obviously remembers it fairly well.
Yeah, he's the master of talking. But,
But he
yeah.
did- That was interesting.
Yeah, I thought it was, I mean, there were things that I really had wanted him to do.
You like,
It was something, and he shifted into that mode. Because I didn't really know that. Really?
Everybody survive?
That's all three, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
actually, they're all three good.
I think it actually, it went honestly better than I, so I don't know, how did things go? Like I said, I knew that the trickiest,
I was just glad I didn't have to ask all the questions.
yeah, so which, you were in,
I just went to the library.
okay, oh, so it was Chicken and Northrop,
Yes,
right? Okay,
yes.
yeah.
No, the kids did well.
We worked our kids over with questions, I mean, pretty extensively, so, but, well, great. I mean, is there anything else I can do to kind of help you to,
No, they'll just kind of grab a chair if they need it, and
Okay.
we'll set it up for you guys Wednesday.
are you sure?
Yeah. So you
Okay,
don't have to come back in. I have the picture from Hannah, so I can.
okay. In terms of this, and I don't know, in terms of the laptop or anything, do I just,
Bye, Kate.
You can just leave it there. I brought this other laptop, so I can.
okay, okay.
Thank you. See you later.
Hey, take care, John. And I realized John and I were up there talking, and it was still on the live stream. Oops. We didn't say anything bad, but it's just that moment of like, I can't imagine any.